we have a draft of the communique, and it looks like migration is going to be one of the subjects very hard hit. Matt Miller, let me come to you and quote the draft. We have reaffirmed the sovereign rights of states to control their own borders and set clear limits on net migration levels. What does that mean for current migrants making their way to Europe and to the United States?
Well, I think what they're trying to say is every member of the G7 still has the sovereignty to decide that for itself, including the European Union members. It's a very important issue to Italy. And remember, Italy is has the presidency of the G7 this year. So right now we're on the island of Sicily in the Mediterranean Ocean, just a hop, skip and a jump away from the Libyan coast, where Italian Navy soldiers routinely pull refugees out of the water. So many flooding over here, trying to get, of course, to Europe, getting away from the issues that they're dealing with in northern Africa, including the war in Syria. It's caused problems, or some would also say boosted the economy. Economic growth in Germany has been quite strong since Angela Merkel took in 1 million refugees, and it's definitely caused debate. It's something that they really want to talk about at this G7, and so they're pushing to get it into the communique.
Right, and then we don't know what else is going to be in the communique yet, at least, Kevin, but we know that it's going to be difficult to get things like climate change in there. What is President Trump going to agree to?
Yeah, Vonnie, to Matt's point, there are several differences here between President Trump and his European counterparts. And most notably, as you mentioned, immigration, but also, of course, climate change. He got a message from the Pope in Vatican City the other day when he was traveling and meeting with the Pope, and that the Pope gave him a book on climate change. And clearly here in Europe, he is facing pressure from the European counterparts of the G7 to try to do something with the Paris Accords. Now, I can tell you that I've been told that there are no significant developments that we are anticipating regarding the administration's stance on the Paris Accord for the remainder of this trip. In fact, there will be no more press events with the exception of an on-background administration briefing later this afternoon. Now, I can also tell you that it has been somewhat different of a response that the Europeans have given President Trump on his first international trip versus the receptive response he got in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia as well as Israel. But earlier today, Vonnie, I went to a briefing with European President Donald Tusk, who said that he actually was, quote unquote, impressed with President Trump's toughness and that Europe should be tough, even brutal, end quote. So behind the scenes, there are some appeasements going on to try to win over President Trump, but clearly some differences, key differences, have emerged.
Matt, 2 words stand out today: very bad. These are the words President Trump used, of course, when talking about the U.S. flooding, Germany, should I say, flooding the U.S. market with cars. How are those comments going down in the German camp?
Yeah, some have called this kind of a tempest in a teacup, but it's definitely bad optics for Donald Trump to make very negative comments about German trade the day before he meets with Chancellor Angela Merkel at the G7 summit in Sicily. Doesn't make a lot of sense to Germans, and it was played out across all of the German newspapers. It started, of course, in Spiegel, but went to Süddeutsche Zeitung and the Bild, the most widely read paper as well. Bottom line is Donald Trump has made comments like this before about German exports. He's had concerns since he became president about the amount of German cars that are sold in the U.S., and he'd like to see more U.S. products sold around the world. Of course, GM has pulled out its operations from Germany, so that really only leaves Ford, I guess, unless you consider Fiat to be an American company still, but there aren't a lot of Chryslers for sale in Germany. There are a lot of issues. It's an incredibly complex industry. You can't really point to any car and say it's 100% made in one country or the other unless you're talking about like a Morgan. So they'll deal with that here. I think Angela Merkel may address that comment when she speaks in just about 2 hours' time, but I don't think it's going to have really serious repercussions.